I'm gonna start. You're being recorded.
I'm being recorded?
Just so you're aware of such
Okay.
things. Hopefully it works. Hello? Hello?
I'm sure it's not gonna tell you, but I'm sure it's fine.
I'm always paranoid that it's not working though.
But it has worked.
So far, yes.
Okay.
So far it's done the thing. You just have to press the button. I don't believe it, if that makes sense, you know? Because the phone's off, but it's still doing it. And there's not a ton of things that the phone does that for. I guess music, too.
Phone calls?
That kind of makes sense. Yeah, I have my phone calls silenced, though. Anyways, how you doing, homie?
I'm doing well.
And
It's gonna be really interesting.
don't think about the fact that I'm recording you. We're just chit-chatting, you know what I'm saying? I'll just mention it, every 5 minutes, just so you can...
But I can't... This is definitely not gonna be I'm gonna just imagine this is a normal conversation. Because it's for an audience.
I think...
So what I'm thinking about is what audience?
Well, every
What are you trying to make?
conversation is for an audience. Usually your audience is just me. But this audience is still mostly me, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna make this art piece, right? It's my thinking about what conversation is. So the piece is literally what does it mean to talk to someone, right? And you've seen how I talk to people, right? So if I'm thinking about what it means to talk to someone, that is still how do you talk to me, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel
I also, usually when I make art, I make it for the art more so than I make it for an audience.
Do you imagine an audience, though, kind of? You imagine, showing your art to someone? Okay, I'm thinking about, if you write a diary, it's really hard to write and not imagine that it's going to be you're going to die someday, and it'll be put in a museum.
Really? Oh, funny.
You know? Not in a way that's I believe that I'm going to be famous or something, but in a way where it's very difficult to put things on a page and not imagine that there's not just an audience, but the audience, the eternal, invisible audience, you know?
That's interesting. Unless I'm writing specifically with the goal of an audience, if that makes sense. I've done that every once in a while where I will literally do what you just said. Imagine this being something that I put out in the world for people to understand who I am. The audience that I imagine just is myself, literally. Usually when I'm making a piece, it's about what I see. And I think this is probably the best illustration of it. When I imagine it in use, I imagine myself going through it. The tunnel piece I'm making right now, I want it to be interactive. I want other people to go through it, but the body that I imagine when I imagine the tunnel piece in action is always myself. Yeah, so I make art because I think art is a way to get you in touch with experiencing the world, or to change the way you experience the world a little bit. Just activate experience, right? As an idea. And I think that's important, in the sense of that I want other people to be doing that too. But I do it because it does it to me as well, right? I do it as a way of engaging with the world. I make art to engage with the world, and then I experience art, including my own art, to engage with the world. Yeah.
It just makes me think about the audience that you imagine even when you're writing a diary or something like that. It's not just the mass of other random people. You're always specifically imagining yourself going through your own work as if you hadn't seen it before, almost.
Exactly. Which is funny because you can't do that.
Yeah.
I actually kind of grieve a little bit that you can't do that, because I think there's a certain wonder to not knowing exactly how a thing is made, and I have to know exactly how the thing is made to make the thing.
That would be really cool if you could have a museum that's made of art that you made in a slightly alternate reality or something like that, and you could experience yourself through your art pieces.
That would be so awesome.
Because you would be the best possible audience for yourself, right?
Oh, for sure.
And it would be much more interesting than seeing someone else's work.
Yeah, I think the closest you could get to that in actual life would be if you focused on making ideas that didn't feel very improvisational in their execution, right? So this tunnel idea, I can kind of like plan it out a little bit and then have someone else make it. And then I get to just experience it. But I guess having the idea itself is already kind of building it.
That's true.
Damn. How much do you think you've changed in your life?
Kind of a lot.
Yeah, how so? I'm trying to figure out a way to get you to monologue so I can eat this.
We love
So
we love-
true.
So true.
Remember that.
We love accurate context. Okay, I don't know. I guess I feel like I don't know. I was a kid, right? I feel like my perspective was shaped through my parents a lot. And so college is always, I don't know. I'm not unique in that. I have nothing interesting to say about that. Sorry.
That's not true. You think? Because the question I asked you was broad. You just think you've changed a lot, but in ways that are totally ununique? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah?
I don't know that I believe you, but okay.
I don't know.
You don't think your life is novel?
I don't know. Maybe not. I feel like if I think back on a lot of my childhood, I feel like I was very often not participating very much in my own life. So it's kind of hard to even characterize myself very much because there was just nothing there, which I guess is kind of mean to myself.
Like you just felt like you were sort of like passive?
Yeah, I've been passive for a lot of my life.
You know why?
I don't know. I guess I've always just defaulted to like listening to what other people are talking about. I don't know. I think also like when you're a kid, you're taught constantly that it's sort of more, it's nicer to other people to kind of just shut up and, I don't know, be as non-obtrusive as possible.
I'm suspicious that was either... When were you in Russia specifically?
Like kindergarten through 3rd grade.
I'm suspicious that was either your parents and what they were like, and also like maybe being in Russia and just a cultural difference thing. But when I was small, I was taught to speak my mind and be my own person. 100%.
What?
Yeah.
No.
My parents sent me to like art camp, you know?
Yeah, but if you go to any...
And my dad is like, you go, girl boss.
If you go to public school at all, they'll be like...
Oh, you mean like they're just like follow directions?
Yeah. Or, like, you know, if you're constantly talking, they'll be like, that's misbehavior.
I guess so, but there's a difference between constantly talking and not talking. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm in English, for example, like in English class, I'm supposed to be engaging with English class, right? But I can sort of talk as much as I want up to a point, right? Like, I can make the discussion something I'm really involved with, right? And by speaking, I can, like, literally change my setting into being something I'm more interested in.
Yeah. I don't know. I just never did that. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've never actually learned how to, like, control a conversation or any kind of social situation.
Do you want to try you right now?
Yeah. I'm not good at this either.
In this conversation situation that I've set up?
Yeah, I'm bad at this also. Like, yeah, it's probably noticeable, but I don't really know what to say ever.
I don't think that's true. I think my impression has always been that you're trying to do too many calculations in order to, like, be able to speak quickly, if that makes sense. And then the result of your calculations will be, like, that there's not a clear solution, and then you won't speak. But that doesn't mean that you don't have anything to say. I guess you did say that you don't know what to say, right? But I think you have many things to say. You're just not saying any of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It could be fun to try, just like, if you feel like you're actually literally doing that, say all of them. And then you can go through and be like, yeah, no. Pick whichever one is the most interesting to both of us. Or you could assign them numbers, and then, like, we could literally random number generator it. What is the suggestion?
Maybe, like, I don't have a list in my head. I'm not, like, I don't have a list. What?
So, like, If you feel like you don't know what to say, what does that actually mean to you? Like, what's in your head, right? Is it, like, multiple things that you could say and you can't choose between them? Or is it, like, literally nothing?
I don't know. I guess nothing? I mean, I don't know. I have thoughts, but I just don't think they're... I don't know. It doesn't matter. I feel like this is going really badly.
I don't think so.
I'm not winning this interview, man.
There's no winning. Do you want to talk about something else?
Well, okay. What I was thinking about was, how you're doing this project, and you told me that it was because you were watching 2 movies, one of which I've never seen, so I don't know what it is. Some Linklater? Is that how you pronounce that guy's name?
Yeah, Richard Linklater or something.
And then, what's the movie called? My Dinner with Andre?
My Dinner with Andre.
I have seen that. So, okay. I've seen the other Linklater movie that we watched together.
Waking Life?
Waking Life. So I'm just imagining that the other movie is somewhat similar in, like, theme.
Actually, 2 of the actors in Waking Life are the main actors in this other movie.
Okay.
Yeah, the scene where, there's, like, these 2 people on a bed talking about reincarnation. And, the whole movie that I watched is basically them meeting on a train, like, as strangers, and then deciding to spend the day together. And then the movie's just been spending the day together and talking.
Yeah, that sounds like a plot invented by that guy.
Yeah, it does. Oh, like, very, like, he'll even say that plot in other movies, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so what that made me think about, your vibe being kind of aligned with the spirit of these 2 movies, kind of, where you do kind of feel like, from my perspective at least, I don't mean to analyze you.
No, analyze away, I'm down.
I feel like you like social situations that are kind of, like, on the spot learning things about people and, like, getting straight to the kernel of it. And those are movies which are kind of about, like, constructing a fantasy of doing that. So I assumed that maybe this project was an attempt to do that in your life. Is that wrong?
A little bit, yeah. Like, I think when I watched them, the train of thought was, like, very literally, and I think part of it was, I'm also not a writer, and so I was thinking to myself, like, how would I write that, right? Like, how do you come up with something that is an interesting conversation? And then I was just thinking, like, I have so many interesting conversations. Like, in my mind, like, I just love talking to people, right? And conversations are basically just really good art. If you choose to think about it that way, right? Like, they're just improvisational, right? And I was wondering what would happen if I just sort of really directly took this, like, from life improvisational thing, because that's what these fantasies are mirroring, and then said to myself, okay, how do they actually happen, right? Like, the way I'm currently living my life, because these fantasy versions, like the movies, are supposed to sort of, like, kindle a desire for, like, sort of like just real conversation with people, or just, like, reflecting on real conversation with people. And so I thought it would be interesting to just sort of gather and think about how I talk to people, and how people talk to people in this very, like, direct, sort of, like, nitty-gritty way, I guess. I guess I'm still planning to change it a bit, but yeah.
What do you think you see in...
Also, it's just a great excuse to talk to a bunch of people, which I love doing, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think you see in, like, I feel like those movies aren't just about, like, a spirit of conversation, but also kind of, like, okay, I obviously haven't seen the Linklater movie, I'm just talking about Waking Life, honestly, but about, like, sort of, like, the life worth living, you know what I mean? You only live once, social behaviors destroyed epically.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're reaching towards something like that, or no? Because a lot of people will watch those movies and they'll see it as somewhat cheesy. You know what I'm talking about?
What do you mean by cheesy?
I think just, like, well, I don't mean to call it cheesy, but, like, you know how, like, I don't know, there's a lot of like romanticization of life, and some people will find that kind of like not just like not achievable, but kind of like almost laughable to think about, like in the way that like some people will look at romance movies like universally that way,
Right.
and they'll be like, there's like a type of relationship that is more realistic and more about just like, you know, you get together with someone who's similar to you and you hang out, you know.
Yeah. So cheesy in the sense that it's unrealistic or like over.
Yeah, or like basically what I'm trying to say is like, to what extent do you like earnestly believe in the life worth living as depicted in those kinds of movies?
I think really strongly. I think it's interesting actually because the Linklater movie is a series. It's a trilogy, a series of 3 movies, and the first movie is. Can I spoil it or no?
Yeah, you can spoil it.
The first movie is them meeting on this train, and it's this very idealized, just like beautiful, like, you know, union of 2 souls in passing, whatever. And they are from different countries, so they part after this one day and plan to meet up again. And like some stuff goes wrong with that, but eventually they do find each other again in this like funny way, and then sort of decide to get together again. That happens during the second movie, and then the third movie is them like married, right? And it's like living their life and having a big fight. So it is this like sort of thinking about the ideal and then what we perceive as being, like the more real reality of what being with a person is, right? Like actually being with them. And they talk about it in the third movie, like they fight because of course they fight, but they love each other, like because of stuff like that, you know, is more nitty gritty stuff that like, you know, is more nitty gritty. But a lot of it is also like they love each other because of the first movie, like that is still who they are in a lot of ways. Like life will can make it hard to remember that you can do that, if that makes more sense. Because you sort of, as you get more busy and more stuff happens, you have to be more intentional about, like, seeking out novelty, or just, like, talking for the sake of talking, instead of talking about things that you have to do, you know what I mean? But yeah, I feel like, in terms of life worth living and stuff, like, living well is just being really intentional and being aware. I don't think it has to be impossible. Like, obviously, there's stuff you have to do, you know, like, I have to get groceries, I have to shower, whatever. But in that sort of, like, life is beautiful way. I don't think you can find every single moment beautiful and, like, function, but I think, you know, you can have a lot of beautiful moments, basically. And I think this type of stuff for me is just, like, the way I try to live in my life is seeking out as many beautiful moments as I can in a way that's still sustainable. And that means I'm not always doing them, but I do pretty often.
Do you always feel like you're seeking them, or do you feel like you've attained them?
I've definitely attained them, yeah.
Do you know any specific examples?
Sometimes I get caught up in the idea of seeking, and I forget how easy it can be to attain them, right? That happened to me kind of recently, because I was like in this thought loop of being like, I want to experience more beautiful moments. Like the idea of the moment as this beautiful occurrence. And then I like hopped in the shower and I like kept looking out my window because I have like a window in my shower and I think my backyard's really beautiful. And I was like looking out my window and I was like, I didn't go outside enough today. I just want to be outside. I want to like be there, right? And then like, you know, readjusted myself and I was like, oh, and I had this just like minor epiphany moment as like happens sort of regularly, and I was like, you know, the beautiful moment is never there, it's always here, right? So just like be here now. And I was like, oh, this is incredible, right? Just like
I think that happened in one of the Linklater.
Yeah
In Waking Life.
Yeah, exactly. Like the water's so nice and I'm literally looking out the beautiful window, right? Like, the view's beautiful, and the light's shining in, and, like, the mist and the air, and, like, gorgeous, right? And you can't have every shower be like that, probably, but you can try, you know what I mean? Like, see how far you can get. And I feel like movies like this, or, like, this line of thinking, or just the sort of idea of romance in general, like, what romance means to me is just, like, being in love with something, right? Like, being in love with life, or, like, a person, right? Like just like really being interested in like touching something or like being in a moment or whatever, right? Like I don't think romance has to be unrealistic. Like you can romantically go get groceries, you know what I mean?
So, would you say that you're looking for the mundane more than you're looking for the standout moments, basically?
I'm looking for both. I think they're both really important.
What's the most standout I feel alive? Do you have any examples of that? That's kind of a hard question.
Let me think though. I think probably just because of my temperament, that happens most obviously to me in a sublime category. Just because I really like hiking, right? So it is that classic like meteor shower and stuff like that. Like people obviously are also beautiful and incredible, and art is beautiful and incredible. But the ones that felt most stand out to me are just like, I once was on a foreign island, Madeira Island, and my partner was sick, and I was going out hiking alone, like like no one else with me, far away from anything else. And it was late in the day even. So no one else was like going on this hike. And it was up this like big mountain basically. And so I was just like climbing this mountain completely alone, And like the view, and it was like windy and there was fog everywhere, and it just like felt insane, right? Like my physical reality felt crazy, right? And I was like, it's crazy that this is like, that this is just like what the universe is, right? It can be like this, and I'm so small and stuff, but that can happen in like many ways. Like even just when I was in Ireland, we took a boat ride to an island off the coast of, the big island of Ireland, and the water was really choppy, and it was raining. We were riding on the top of the boat just for fun, and it was like, feeling like the big lurching of the boat and being like splattered with rain. It just looked insane, right? And so it's like this very like physical awareness of probably also death, right? Like precariousness and just like largeness and like, I don't know, very beautiful at the same time. Yeah.
It's interesting how the proximity of death and even the being alone kind of way of feeling about life is I think kind of like experiencing a small like social death is like is the same thing. The proximity to death is the experience of life.
Absolutely.
You don't agree now?
Yeah, because like, what else is gonna make you think about life more, than death?
One, I had an experience like the one you're talking about on the boat. It was when I was when I went to Italy. I like looked on Reddit for like beaches around Rome because I didn't want to like go like make a whole like a day trip basically. So I ended up going to this random beach that I went to by a train. That was kind of in the middle of nowhere and was not like touristy at all. And so nobody spoke English and I felt like extremely lost. And then when I was on the beach, it was kind of rocky. And at one point I was like trying to climb over some rocks and I like could have fallen. Like, I almost fell into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I would have been, like, battered against the rocks and died. So I just, like, stood for a long time on the beach. Like, what? Where am I? I'm not... What am I doing with my life? And it was terrible. That was terrible.
Oh, yeah?
But it was also very memorable. Like... Probably what you were saying with the boat and things like that. It's, I don't know, you just think about how many people there are in the world and how easy it is to be disconnected from all of that and all of your experiences.
And just like being truly yourself, like when you're alone in a sort of more dangerous moment like that, it's like if you're with a person, you can be worried about that person and their life, you know what I mean? But when you're just alone, it's like, oh, if I die, I'm dead. Like, I'm dead, you know what I mean? Like, that's it for me. Like, that's all that I do is be me, and I'm not doing that anymore if I die, right? I think that's why it's so crazy. Yeah, I think it's easy to be for other people, but if you're alone, then you're just being for yourself.
What do you think is the, like, closest experience that would involve other people then? Or, like, that we're talking about the sort of, like, sublime? Okay. Do you ever feel like how close have you come to actually knowing other people, do you think?
I don't know. I think pretty close. I think it's funny how much it varies per person. Almost not like, okay, I don't know how to say this. I spent a lot of time with a lot of different people, right? And I think the people I know best are not necessarily the people I've spent the most time with, right? Like, a lot of that can come down to, like, I think truly knowing a person requires them to, like, just let you know them or, like, want to be fully known, right? I think I'm probably not even someone who wants to be known fully. Like, I don't think I'm even good at that for some reason, which is probably silly, but, like, I've like engaged deeply with some people who definitely want to be known fully, and so I feel like I know them pretty well. My ex, who you and I both now good friends with, is probably the biggest example. He like very much wears his heart on his sleeve, like for everyone, right? So then dating him was like, I know him very very well, right? But I think even like I've dated my current partner longer at this point, but they're more reserved. So I don't even think I would say that I know them as well, because I don't think they want to be known as much as my ex wants to be known. But I don't think most people want to be known, like, totally, you know what I mean?
I feel like they might. I feel like everyone kind of wants to be known, but then, like...
Deep down. But some people are really like, my ex just, like, wants to be known fully and will, like, genuinely just say it in everything he says. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Yeah, which is, like, incredible. Good for him.
Yeah. Do you wish you were more known? Or are you not even trying to be known?
I don't know, honestly. I think annoyingly, that probably runs into one of my biggest character flaws, which is, like, I'm really bad at being vulnerable, right? Or at least in my mind, I'm pretty bad at being vulnerable. Which makes that hard because it's like a competing drives thing. And I think that, again, like, we were talking about your parents earlier, I think a lot of that just comes down to, like, how you're raised and how you're taught to be near people and stuff. Like, I wasn't vulnerable as a kid, so I'm not vulnerable now. And I don't really know how to do that very well, I guess. I have this, like, the better someone knows you, theoretically, the more they can hurt you. Or maybe not. I find it quite funny how much I trust people who are physically stronger than me not to kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my current partner could kill me whenever they wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is, like, crazy. I don't know. But that's something you just literally physically have to trust people in order to, like, live with other people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think, like, there's a certain level of that with, like, a non-physical, like, there's a certain baseline level of vulnerability that you have to, like, succeed in order to, like, talk to people at all. Or just, like, exist in a communal world. I don't know.
I will say, because I think I probably read now as someone who's, like, more willing to be vulnerable than I did when I was younger. And I think a lot of that is, in my mind, actually just self-confidence, right? Like, once you accept things about yourself, then, like, doing that is kind of the same as, like, giving it to other people a little bit of you. Like, truly are just in touch with, like, yeah, I know who I am, and I'm doing that thing.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wonder if talking about, like, how to be vulnerable is kind of the same thing as talking about how to live the best life possible, in that you imagine it and idealize it as something where you can have an end moment, kind of. Like, you can be fully known, and you imagine, like, some, like, I don't know, most terrible secret in your life being exposed to the world, and they'll accept you for it. Or, like, you know, I have the best life possible, and, like, I'm living in some sort of, like, movie montage or, I don't know, teenage dream.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's about, like, everyday smallness. Like, you were talking about how you're going to the grocery store, and you can romanticize that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's probably a similar thing with vulnerability, where it's not just about, like, exposing the smallest, worst corners of yourself, but it's just, like, the everyday attempting to play yourself as yourself. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, play yourself as yourself is funny, though, because I get the thing that you're doing is saying, like, instead of playing someone else. Like, you're truly just playing, like, who you are. But it's funny that it's still playing something, right? Instead of just, like, being who you are directly.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah.
Yeah. There's always a metaphor of, like, the yet-to-be uncovered self, the yet-to-be uncovered life, which I think reveals that we're still not talking about it yet, in terms of being, like, being able to appreciate the mundane aspects. We're still looking for the inner as if there's something inner. Like, we can never accept that there's not something. I don't know. Well, but to some extent, it always feels like there's something that you could reach. Like, there's some things that are being said that aren't being said that could be said, I guess.
Right. And then just, like, I don't think I know anyone who feels like they're living perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like, even people who are really, really devoted to, like, the wonder of being and enjoying life as much as possible. No one has a beautiful shower every time they shower. You know what I'm saying? But because I know how often I do and how often I shower, I can always do more. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I should just be trying harder to have more beautiful showers. I didn't even think about that.
You see what I mean, though? Because there's, like, so much. There's so much that you can do. And it's so easy to get caught up in thinking forward and, like, all the stuff you want to do. And just, like, the stress of... I guess, like, the present is always hard because it's always active. Like, just a literal physical exertation. Sort of like you're, like, doing something that costs something, if that makes any sense, right? Like, I have to eat food so then I can go on a pretty walk, right? But, like, in this sort of, like, idealized future mindset, like, the perfect, pretty walk, right? But, like, in this, is, like, I'm almost dead, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's no maintenance. It doesn't require it. But, like, the present, you, like, are doing maintenance for beauty. Like, which is this sort of, you know, because, like, even if you're just being in a moment, you have to have enough water and food. Like, you know, you have to, like, be able to be in a moment. You have to not just be in chronic pain, like all this stuff. And then you still even have to breathe, you know? Like, you can't just be because you're always doing things to be alive. I don't know, it's like it's just like this exertion thing, and exertion can be exhausting, I guess. Which is then why we get distracted or whatever, or like feel overworked. Because in the future, you're not doing anything because it hasn't happened yet, you know?
It also makes me think about how the, like, fantasy of the perfect life is never that you, like, plan for things to happen and then, like, execute the plan. It's always, like, it just happens to you. And you're like, wow, I'm so caught up in this, what do you call, like, what's the word for something that's, like, just happening? Oh, spontaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, the spontaneity is part of the myth.
Yes, totally.
Like, so intertwined.
You need a stranger on the train. Yeah, they literally talk about that in the movies. It's like, it feels like stolen time because it's not something they're supposed to be doing. Like, they're not supposed to have met each other and stuff.
But in real life, if you're trying to have a good life, you gotta like, be thinking about, okay, next weekend, I'm gonna actively attempt to do something that I'm gonna like.
Yeah, and I do think it's also important to try to stay spontaneous. But I think the way that life works, like, I think part of the romantic dream is, like, you're always in your 20s, you know? Like, that's the age of these people when they're doing these things always. Or, like, where they're, like, living a life that's sort of... Like, in My Dinner with Andre, the guy that's sort of living this, like, crazy spontaneous life has abandoned his normal life, right? And, like, people think he's totally crazy, right? And, like, even he is, like, I'm totally crazy, what am I doing? Right, like, it's this very, I don't know. But so, like, as you get older, you just have more obligations. Like, because when you're younger, your parents are doing a lot of it for you. You know what I mean? Or, like, you don't have children yet, or, like, whatever it is, right? It's just, like, less stuff. Because the longer you're alive, the more stuff you've done. So the more stuff you're, like, held to a little bit, you know? The more stuff you have. So then, the more stuff you have to maintain. And so it gets funny, because it's, like, if you want to be spontaneous, you have to schedule free time so that you can be spontaneous in that free time. Like, the time just stops existing as much, you know? Because you have things you're supposed to do and stuff. But I feel like getting older beautifully is both figuring out how to declare to yourself and to the people around you that, like, just having time that you're free is, like, really important. And becoming comfortable, like, genuinely just scheduling beautiful moments and letting that be something that works. I think you can do that, you know? And then why not? Like, I think some spontaneousness is definitely good, but that's always hard. I always feel that way because I'm so busy, and it's so hard, like, not make a plan or, like, cancel a plan when all I have to do is something that I'm choosing to do, you know? Like, if I'm like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment, I'm sick, I need to finish writing this essay for this class that I'm already obligated to finish, then people are like, totally understandable, man. But if I'm like, I'm too busy, I need to make an art piece, or I'm going on a hike alone, it's like, oh, okay, you know? Like, my friends kind of accept it, but I think the world definitely doesn't try to let you do that as much.
You know, honestly, I've never really thought that. Like, if you tell me that you're doing an art piece, I'll be like, whatever, you know? I've never had that distinction between things that you're supposed to do and things that you're...
That's so funny, because that happens a lot of times to me in terms of what it means to have free time, right? Because people will be like, oh, when are you free? Like, when do you have free time? Stuff that I'm more obligated to, right? And, like, say, for example, I'm supposed to be saving, like, a Sunday to just, like, hang out with myself. And then, like, someone wants me to help them move. You get what I'm saying? It's like, sorry, I can't help you move. I'm hanging out with myself.
Yeah, I would probably see that as weird.
That's what I mean, though. But if I was like, I have to write an essay, then you'd be like, oh, you're busy. But life gets more and more like that, I think, as you get older. Like, it becomes harder and harder to... You have more stuff that feels like it's mandatory for you to do. Like, helping someone move, I think.
Sometimes I wonder about that a little bit, though, because I feel like I'm not like a 30 or 40-year-old yet. And I feel like, okay, if you have a family, then you're probably busy all the time. But I feel like my parents are never really doing anything.
Oh, really?
Kind of. I mean, they have their jobs, but then, like, they don't have, like, social engagements. And then if they're planning on, like, I don't know. I can't imagine it being that difficult. I almost wonder if it's more like, I don't know, a lot of the things that we're talking about as being like it gets less and less possible, it's not so much that it gets less and less possible, but that it gets less and less socially acceptable to be silly. Because of what I was saying before about how, like, romance and life best lived is thought of as kind of cheesy almost, and, like, the dream of teenagers specifically. And the further you are from being a teenager, the more you have to justify it.
Yeah, that's why Andre is like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I think about that a lot in terms of just, like, imagine you're, I don't know, 40, and you're like, I want to put on a play with my friends. Who's gonna say yes to that? I mean, even if they had time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just looks weird to, like, have to, like, be bad at things and be doing things.
That's totally so true. I think we were like, yeah, but also weirdly anti-silly, which is such a shame. I don't know why, though. I think I've tried to, like, cheat around it. I think the arts is, like, one of the best cheats that exist doing that, right? Because I can, like...
I am an artist, and therefore that label allows me to do anything.
And therefore there is a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason, and culture has at least sort of, like, socially, like, I'm socially understood. I'm maybe not the most socially accepted class, but I'm not, like, that people won't be like, oh, you're clearly insane. What's wrong with you? They'll be like, oh, you're an artist. You're making art. That's why you're being weird. You're not being weird. You're being artsy. That's actually a big part of why I think I got into art in the first place, and I've, like, stayed into it. I think it's beautiful, but it feels like such a trick to be like, oh yeah, I've decided to be one of the people that can vary how I engage with the world.
You have to engage in something conceptual with me now. It's actually for a project, so...
Yeah, there is a reason, actually. Actually, I'm making something, so it's productive, actually.
That's kind of how I met you, is you made me do that labyrinth thing. And it wasn't really for an art piece, but it kind of was. That was the pretense.
Yeah, I was thinking about the art piece. Yeah. And then I did end up making it into an art piece. But that's totally true. I don't know. Art is definitely a cheat to be. But the thing I was going to say is, in terms of the 40-year-olds and getting together to make a play, I think when it does happen, it happens more officially. Like, it'll be a small community theater.
Yeah, you have to have a community theater. It has to be a bunch of 40-year-olds in it. And you have to audition for a part, which means that you already kind of need to have committed to the fact that you were trying acting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely less spontaneous. But I am curious. I think part of why I was thinking that about adulthood is just the adults I've seen seem like they have less free time to me. Like, my dad is working literally all the time, and my mom actually has a big social life, but she definitely is, like, doing it, you know what I mean? And then my role models, like, when I look at the people who are doing jobs that I think I would really enjoy, none of them ever have as much time as I want to have when I'm living my life. Like, when I look at my professors, I'm like, your job seems so cool, you know? But then I'm like, they're teaching all day. And then when they go home, they have to hang out with their family, and they're always doing something. And they've picked cool things to do. Like, they're doing cool things, and that's sort of how they've tried to cheat it, but they're always doing something. They have so little time to just be spontaneous and, hey, let's go grab a coffee or whatever, you know? Unless I'm in a class with them and they have a very direct reason why they should be engaging with me, it's hard to get them for more than half of an hour, ever.
Yeah, that's true. I guess in retrospect, every professor that I've ever had has had that. It seems like that to me from the outside. I mean, probably it's just like if you have a job and you have a family, which is, I guess, probably every adult that I know, then that probably takes up even more time than there is in the day, like by default.
Literally. I think that's true. Like, my partner's doing teaching right now, and they're just teaching middle school, and their workday is 8 hours, and then they have to come home and grade.
Yeah.
And imagine if they also had kids. Like, where would I've been planning to not have kids as long as I can remember being myself, because in my brain, it's not possible to have kids and have time for yourself in the way that I feel like I'm going to really need it. I don't know. I think also, like, a lot of it is, like, when I was younger, or just, like, looking through history and stuff, great women, like, women who have done a lot with their lives, either don't have kids, or, like, women who have, like, come close to doing a lot with their lives will say, like, the reason I didn't is because I had kids, you know? It's just, like...
It's true.
Yeah, it's just, like, I've been hearing that too long. One of my friend's moms always said that there's, like, 3 things that you have, and you pick 2 of them. One is, like, your career, and, like, liking your career, caring about your career, having a family. And then... having a family, and then, like, a passion for anything else. Like, if you're an artist, making art, you know? Also, it's so fucking expensive.
Yeah, having kids.
Yeah, like, beyond time, you know? Like, that's sort of just the most serious obligation, because, you know, you have to, like, not only have a job, but you really have to have a job, right? Because there's people who aren't you that you are indebted to funding and stuff.
I'm definitely glad I don't have a kid yet.
It is fun being in relationships, though, because I think literally everyone I've dated wants children, and whenever they date me, they're always just a little bit in denial of the fact that I actually don't want children. And they're like, at some point, you're going to change your mind. They always say that. Or, like, they say it in their head, and then after we break up, that's what they say. They're like, yeah, I kind of thought maybe you'd end up wanting kids. Which is exciting because I do want to be with people. Like, I don't want to be single necessarily, but I do be struggling to find people who also want to be unchilded.
I think it's just, like, honestly, I don't want kids. But I do wonder if I'm going to change my mind at some point without even being told that I'm going to change my mind. Because it's just, like, the narrative of, like, it's like the default narrative of someone's life. To, like, you marry someone, you have kids, I don't know, you retire. There's something that goes on in between those two, but that's it, I guess.
You raise the kids, do your career?
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like when I think about getting older, it's hard for me to, like, up through college, people say this all the time, up through college, there's a narrative of, like, okay, I'm doing this major, and then you get a job, and then what? And it's kind of like that for the romance side of the equation as well. Like, okay, so you're dating someone. Whether or not you get married, I don't really know. But then there's kind of an expectation that you're going to live together, you're going to have kids, and then what? Or, you know, if you don't have kids, it's also and then what? But in a different way. Because if you have kids, the and then what is mostly that you're going to raise them, and then you live vicariously through the kid almost.
That's so true. You are. I want to go to a puppet show.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. What I was trying to say was just like, in the same way that college is like the end point of education, and then you're just supposed to, I guess, like live, continue your career, having kids is like a similar end point, where it's like, I guess you raise the kid, but then like your life is kind of like just going through the motions after that. And like I'm kind of afraid of like getting to a point where it's just is go through all the motions. I don't know. It just sounds like it sucks. And that everyone is doing this because they feel like that is the story of human life.
I'm curious how they actually feel about it though, because I think there's sort of a very biological drive shift that happens to people who end up having children. You know, like, it's not that you feel like you're going through motions or like you're living vicariously through your children, but like you actually are living for your children. Like you're living for them. And that's what you want to do now. Right? You have that sort of like, I think for a lot of people that actually happens.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I think part of it is like the most popular, like, large achievement or like activity that people decide to undertake during their life is having a kid. And so we view it as this sort of like default, you're not doing anything thing. But it is like a beautiful, incredible thing.
Yeah.
Right, I just like struggle to, I think, ever do one thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, yeah, what you just said is kind of why I wonder if I'm going to change my mind at some point. Because there's a certain point in which you're like, if I'm not going through the motions, I have no meaning in life. And having a kid is so much more than a job, feels like. Like an actual accomplishment. And something that would like lend your personhood in the world more significance.
Yeah. Yeah, like you kind of can't keep questioning why you'd be living your life, because now when you do that, you have to consider like, well, do I want to decide for this other person, like, why they should be living their life? If I think that they should have the ability to choose, then I have to be living my life so that they can live their life. You know, I don't know. I do get worried about it, especially in like my biology going against me way. I hear all the time that when you turn like fucking 28 or something, the hormones inside you just have a shift. You should have a baby, you should have a baby, you should have a baby.
I don't know if I believe in like hormones controlling my mind.
No, but like what is in you is what you are literally. Like my hormones are part of my temperament now already, right? So that will be who I am. And like I'll want to have kids more for like a set duration of time probably. And I don't know if I'm going to make it through. I don't know. It does feel kind of funny though, because humans already do so much to not be like how we would exist as animals. And just like completing our animal desires and stuff. But like I think having kids is one of them. Like there's no reason I should have a kid.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that like maybe it would be a cool experience to make a person, raise a person. But like there's enough people. There's more than enough people. Like why should I be making more? Like the civilization, like we don't need it, you know? And like maybe like, oh, the one thing I can imagine is like, oh, I'm taking the life away from a future person. But like every time you don't have a kid, that's true. True. You know, like I could be always making babies.
Facts. Well, in the past, I don't even know if you're like, if you needed to want to have a kid because, you know, you just have a contraception, you just have one and that's it.
What? But now we can choose. And then it's like...
I always am so thankful that I live in a world where I can choose to have a kid. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I think about that a lot.
Holy shit, dude. If I, like, already had a child, lose my shit. It is crazy how no of a development that is also. Like, we're living so different than the rest of humans have, you know, for all of history.
And, like, the rest of women have in the past couple decades. I'm always thinking about that.
Yeah.
That was something I was thinking about when we were talking about, like, kids lending meaning to your life. Because I think it's interesting that a kid is a way in which, like, okay, I'm thinking about how people always talk about community. And I feel like people have a very specific desire to contribute to a community in a way where it's not just, like, people want to have pride in their work insofar as it specifically represents them. Like, their identity is in it somehow. And that it couldn't have been done in the same way by other people. And I feel like we live in an era where things are not made by specific people and appreciated in the light of them being made by specific people as much. And kids are one of the few things that are like, if you're a parent, you have a very specific role that's very, like, reliant on it being you.
And literally the biological, like, most people don't want to adopt because for some reason they feel it, like, it being something that comes from their DNA is important.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, because then it's like something they did more. That's actually funny though, because I was sort of thinking in my head the opposite, which is like to not have children is to sort of do this like egotistical leap. Because if you think about production, right, like I can do a certain amount through the course of a life, right? If I have children, then those children can also do a certain amount through the course of their lives. And I maybe can do less during my specific life, but I think the net effect of them also having a life is more productive, right?
It's always framed in that way, as, like, giving yourself to someone else's life.
Yeah, but it's like this sort of future effect that I think in net creates more than if I had just lived my one life. So you have to make a sort of egotistical leap to be like, no, just living my life is more valuable. Or at least more valuable to me. So then it's this funny, selfish thing that you have to do. So to me, like, choosing not to have children feels like this, like that push towards being the person who makes the thing, or like being the person who has the life. Like, I'm interested in my life, like specifically mine, right? And like that's what it means to not have children.
Yeah, but what I was saying is that if you're not having kids, I feel like everyone's gonna probably hope that they're gonna contribute something that has their signature on it. That isn't a kid, but it's similar.
That's so true. Yeah, and I'm like, I'll make art. That's so true.
I think a conversation is also, like, in that framework where you're always hoping, if you're, like, in a group conversation, that, like, what you're contributing has your signature in it. And you're always, like, keeping track of what you're contributing. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know if that's just me.
That happens to me sometimes, yeah. But I think more so than like signature, it's just about like creating value. I try not to think about it that way though.
Yeah, I try not to. I just think it's like, okay, like I was thinking about situations where like we're talking about like multiple people contributing to one like bigger whole. And if you're thinking about like literally producing things, like doing work, that often feels very anonymous. Like whatever task it is, unless you're like something very specific like a teacher, it's often like you produce a product that doesn't have you in it. If you're talking to people, that's like almost always a situation where the thing that you're contributing is you.
That's definitely true. Yeah, you're never not yourself, I guess.
I feel like I'm not explaining.
No, I get what you're saying. Conversation is a lot like giving birth.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
You're creating something 100%. And like you're also influencing the world because you're influencing other people, you know? Like you want your conversation to be something that affects someone, right? You also want to be affected, which I think is cool, right? I do think it can be fun to try to get out of self-particularity, though. Like, when I'm in a group discussion, sometimes I try to just think, like, not about the particular people that are speaking and, like, the conversation itself as, like, its own existence, right? And then, like, what does it need to be better? I think that's what being devil's advocate is a lot of the time, right? It's literally saying, like, this is not me, but this should be in the conversation. I don't know.
That is a funny way of thinking about devil's advocate.
It is 6:20.
We should probably leave.